Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a budgeting strategy. It's called the 7-compartment method.
Right.
And when we say budgeting here, we really mean, having a conscious plan for your income. Where does it go?
Exactly.
Our goal today is to really get into the nuts and bolts of this approach, see how it works, and figure out if it could, help you get a better handle on your finances. We've got some insights from a finance pro, Alex, and also from Jamie, someone who's actually used this method themselves.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about this 7-compartment idea is its core principle. It's all about intentionally splitting your paycheck.
Splitting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Into 7 specific categories or, compartments, giving each bit of your income a specific job right from the get-go.
Ah, okay.
The whole structure is designed to, take away some of that uncertainty, that feeling of, where did my money even go?
Right. I think a lot of people feel that, like your money just vanishes. Or maybe you struggle balancing, spending now versus saving for later.
Yes, exactly that tension.
Well, this deep dive might offer a really practical way to think about it, a framework. And it's not just like a random idea. There's research suggesting that budgeting using categories, it can actually lead to people saving significantly more.
It makes sense. Structure helps.
Definitely. So let's dig into these compartments, starting with number 1, fixed expenses.
Okay, fixed expenses. This is really the foundation, you could say. It covers those costs that are essential, they recur, and they're mostly the same amount each month.
Like rent.
Like rent or your mortgage payment, your regular grocery runs, those predictable bills, utilities, insurance, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And the guideline you often see is allocating somewhere between, say, 50 to 60% of your income here to these needs.
Okay, 50 to 60%. That seems like a big chunk.
Well, it covers the absolute essentials for most people.
And Jamie's experience really backed this up, didn't it?
It sounds like it did.
They found that by consciously trying to keep those fixed costs under that 60% ceiling, they just became way more aware of what they were spending elsewhere. It sort of acted like a natural
A
brake.
constraint, yeah.
And it meant those crucial bills always got paid first, no question.
That makes total sense. When you clearly define that fixed cost bucket and put a limit on it, you build a more stable base. It stops those essential costs from creeping up and maybe, crowding out other important things you want to do with your money.
But what challenges might someone run into trying to stick to that 60%?
That's a really good point.
I mean, if you live somewhere really expensive.
Right, high cost of living areas.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have a large family.
Yeah. Hitting that 50, 60% just for the basics could be tough. Really tough.
Absolutely.
It might mean making some hard choices, like about housing or maybe even where you buy food.
Exactly. And that's where, personal circumstances are key. That 50, 60%. It's a guideline, not some unbreakable rule. The important part is consciously looking at those essential costs. Now, the second compartment kind of shifts the focus. It looks towards the future. Financial goals. Here, the typical recommendation is setting aside about 20% of your income.
20%.
And this isn't just for, long-term savings retirement way down the line. It also includes actively paying down debt, if you have any.
So debt and savings together.
Yes. The emphasis is really on making your financial future a priority right now.
That whole pay yourself first idea really comes through here.
It does.
And Jamie had a great example of that, right? They automated part of their income.
Into an emergency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Straight into an emergency fund. Wasn't for anything specific right then.
Right.
But then, boom, unexpected car repair. And having that dedicated money was, a huge relief.
Yeah, that illustrates it perfectly. Having that safety net is so important.
Absolutely. What other kinds of goals might fit into this 20% bucket?
Oh, lots of things. Besides the emergency fund and tackling debt, people often use this for saving for big things, like a down payment on a house, or maybe saving for kids' education, or, of course, those longer-term retirement goals. The nice thing about this compartment is that dual focus, tackling current obligations like debt while also building for the future.
Makes sense. Okay, so compartment 3. This is where things get maybe a bit more flexible. Variable expenses.
That's right, variable expenses. Usually the guideline here is somewhere around 20 to 30% of your income.
So similar to the goals bucket, percentage-wise?
Roughly, yeah. And this is basically your discretionary spending, your fun money, if you like.
Fun money, okay.
Money for things like eating out, entertainment, hobbies, other non-essential things that just make life enjoyable.
But there's a catch, right? It still has limits.
Oh, definitely. That's crucial. The spending comes with preset limits based on that 20-30% allocation.
Right.
It's all about spending intentionally on the stuff you enjoy, but without letting it, get out of hand.
And Jamie's experience showed this too.
Yeah, it really did. They talked about setting aside a specific amount each month for these variable costs and then consciously sticking to it.
Like really sticking to it.
Apparently so. If they, say, splurged on concert tickets early in the month, they knew they'd have less cash left for going out to dinner later on. It forces you to make choices within those limits.
So it's not really about saying no to everything fun.
Not at all.
It's more about making active decisions on how you want to use that fun money allocation.
Precisely.
It seems like this could really help avoid that feeling at the end of the month, like, wait, where did all my extra cash go?
Absolutely. It gives you a framework. You can enjoy life, spend on those things, but you stay in control of the bigger financial picture. And because you have a designated amount for it, you can spend it without guilt. You know it's already planned for.
Okay, so we've covered fixed expenses, financial goals, variable expenses. That's 3. Now, what's really important to mention here, our source material for today, it actually doesn't go into detail on the other 4 compartments.
That is a key point, yeah. We need to acknowledge that. While the name clearly says 7-compartment method.
Right.
The information we really have available from Alex and Jamie, it mostly focuses on these first 3 core areas.
So that's kind of a limitation for our deep dive today.
It is. But the principles we've talked about just with these 3, they still offer a lot of value, I think.
True. But what impact do you think not having details on the other 4 might have?
Yeah.
If someone's trying to, fully implement this?
Good question. I could see it creating some uncertainty, maybe.
Yeah, okay, what am I supposed to put in buckets 4, 5, 6, and 7?
Exactly. It might mean they have to do a bit more digging elsewhere, or maybe make some educated guesses.
Based on the philosophy of the first 3, maybe.
Perhaps. You can imagine other compartments maybe covering less frequent expenses like annual insurance payments, or perhaps breaking down savings goals even further. Longer-term stuff?
Yeah, could be.
Without that explicit guidance, it kind of highlights that you might need to adapt this method a bit. Make it work for you. So let's shift gears a little. How might someone listening actually get started with this? Based on what we do know, the absolute first step, according to our sources, you need to understand where your money is actually going right now.
Right. Tracking your spending.
Yes.
Track your savings.
That seems foundational. You can't really divide your income effectively if you're clueless about your current habits, can you?
Exactly. It's like trying to navigate without knowing where you are on the map.
Good analogy.
Jamie specifically mentioned using an app, something like Mint.
Ah, those budgeting apps.
Yeah. These types of apps, they often automate the process. They can pull in your transactions and categorize them. Gives you a really clear picture, sometimes highlighting spending you weren't even really aware of.
What makes those apps particularly useful for this tracking stage? Is it just the automation?
I think the automation is a huge part of it, yeah.
Saves you writing everything down. Definitely. Instead of manually logging every coffee or purchase, the app does a lot of that work. It can sort things into groceries, transport, entertainment. Gives you that comprehensive overview pretty quickly.
Okay, so track first. Get that clear picture. What's next?
Once you've got a decent handle on your current spending, the next step is to organize your accounts somehow, to reflect these compartments.
Organize accounts. How?
Well, our sources suggest a couple of ways. One approach is pretty literal. Open separate bank accounts for the key categories.
Like a specific account just for bills.
Exactly. Maybe one for fixed expenses, another dedicated to your financial goals, savings, debt payments, and then a third for that variable, fun money spending.
Physically separating the money. I can see how that would make it really clear.
Yeah, visually very distinct.
Might make it easier to see, okay, this much is left for fun, and maybe less tempting to, dip into the bill money for something else.
For sure, there can be a real psychological advantage to that physical separation. Keeps things neat.
But maybe managing lots of accounts is a hassle.
It can be, yeah. There might be fees or just the logistics of tracking multiple balances.
So what's the alternative?
The other option mentioned is using digital budgeting apps. Like YNE, you need a budget.
YNE, okay. How does that work differently?
These apps let you create virtual envelopes or categories within your existing accounts.
Ah, so it's digital separation, not physical.
Exactly. You allocate the funds within the app itself without needing, 3 or 4 different bank accounts.
What are the main pros of using a digital tool like that versus the multiple accounts?
Well, flexibility is probably a big one. And ease of management.
Easier to adjust things.
Yeah, you can easily tweak your allocations in the app, see your progress in real time, get reports on your spending. For people who like managing finances digitally anyway, it might feel more streamlined.
Makes sense. Choose the system that works for you, physical or digital.
Right. And then there was one more really practical tip from Jamie for staying motivated, especially with that financial goals bucket.
Oh, yeah. Well, what was that?
Naming your savings accounts with specific goals.
Naming them.
Yeah. So instead of a savings account, you might call it like Trip to Bali Fund or Emergency Do Not Touch.
Huh. I like that. Don't touch.
Right. That personal touch, it seems small, but it can actually make a big difference psychologically.
So?
Well, by giving the savings a really specific job, a purpose you care about, it creates a stronger emotional link.
Ah, so it's not just a number anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's tied to something tangible you want, that dream house down payment, that rainy day security.
And that could make you more disciplined, less likely to rate it for something trivial.
That's the idea, that little bit of extra motivation.
Interesting. Okay, so pulling this all together, the main benefit of this method, at least based on the 3 compartments we've really dug into from Jamie's experience, it seems to be that ability to spend within your limits, but without feeling guilty about it.
Yes, that guilt-free spending piece is significant.
Knowing you've already allocated money for fun, for goals, for bills, it frees you up mentally.
It really can change your mindset around spending, especially discretionary spending, because you know the important stuff is covered and progress is being made on goals.
And thinking bigger picture, this whole method feels like it's about taking a more proactive stance with your money.
Definitely proactive, not reactive.
Instead of just seeing where it went at the end of the month, you're deciding beforehand where you want it to go.
You're assigning intent.
Right. And that sense of control.
Yeah.
That seems like it could be huge for reducing financial stress, just feeling more secure.
Absolutely. Financial well-being isn't just about the numbers. It's about that feeling of control and confidence, too.
Totally agree.
So for everyone listening, maybe take a second to think about how you manage your money right now. Does this idea of distinct compartments, resonate at all? Does it sound helpful?
Yeah. Does it click with you?
And maybe think, what's one small thing, one actionable step you could take, maybe even today, to get a bit more clarity, a bit more control?
Does that be huge, right?
Not at all. Maybe it's just downloading one of those tracking apps we mentioned, or just spending 15 minutes looking over last month's bank statement. Just starting somewhere.
That's a great point. A small step is still a step.
Yeah.
Ultimately, even though we didn't get the full details on all 7 compartments from our sources today, the core ideas, categorizing your income, consciously deciding where it goes, that whole framework seems really valuable for building a stronger financial footing.
It really boils down to bringing intentionality into your financial life.
Intentionality, that's the word.
And that itself, that conscious approach, can lead to, greater peace of mind.
And maybe, like Jamie found, a bit more guilt-free fun along the way, too.
Couldn't hurt, right?
Definitely not.
All right.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive on the 7-compartment method. We really hope this gave you some useful things to think about. Thanks for joining us.